Hey, what is up guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7. Update 1.52 is here and alongside it came 3 new vehicles. In today's video I'm going to give you my initial thoughts and opinions on all 3 of them. Very much a JDM takeover for this update featuring 3 Japanese vehicles. Of course, all very wild and different from each other. We had the R35 GTR updated to a 2024 specification. We also had the likes of the Toyota HIACE, giving us a bit of a different take this time around. And of course, finally, we had the arrival of the long-awaited Mitsubishi Evo XII. So we're going to get into it and review every single one of these vehicles. Before we do though, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe and turn your notifications on so you don't miss an upload. Let's begin then with the Nissan GTR R35 T-Spec 2024. Finally, we are starting to see some updated 2024 specifications of pre-existing vehicles, and for me the GTR is absolutely a must for any Japanese racing game, so it's great to see it. As you can see, it retails for 200,000 credits and is actually the most expensive road-going Nissan GTR, even more so than the GTR Nismo. It does feature a plethora of different customization options, the likes of wide bodies, front splitters, side skirts, rear bumpers, wings and more, so it has you covered in all those directions, including some very obvious and not so subtle drag parts that are kind of mixed in with the rest of the body kits. You may be able to spot the likes of the front grille and the very clearly obvious drag rear wing. Who knows, maybe Polyphony are hinting at something with that. Now in terms of the car itself, from standard it has one core issue. Whilst it is absolutely a rocket ship, it's of course got the legendary 4-wheel drive system in it, launch control, absolute rocket ship acceleration, decent top speed and overall pretty decent handling. It's definitely the downside to this is going to be the brakes. That is something that stood out to me straight away. The GTR feels incredibly heavy under the brakes. Now in terms of the interior itself, now I'm really just not necessarily a fan of it, and I do think the GTR interior is really starting to kind of show its age. This is a model that's been around since 2007 in multiple iterations, but inside for a traffic spec vehicle and one that's meant to show off a nicer interior, it doesn't necessarily feel much more special than what we see in the other GTR models. However, where this car comes into its own is when you start throwing those legendary upgrades on it. Continuing the tradition that pretty much anything with a GTR badge in Gran Turismo is a massive rocket ship, it is no different when it comes to the T-Spec. This thing is capable of putting out almost 1,000 brake horsepower, and with a top speed of over 250 miles per hour, 4-wheel drive, insane acceleration and all the weight reduced, it's an absolute track spec monster. So in conclusion, what do I think about the T-Spec? I think this is absolutely an essential car for Gran Turismo to have. Of course, the most up-to-date GTR possible, actually having it in game, for me, is a must. So do you know what? Props to Polyphony for this one. I also think it's probably the best looking GTR model to ever exist, even better looking than the Nismo. Of course, the model itself's been around since 2007, which is an insanely long time, and do you know what? If this is kind of the final goodbye to the R35 GTR, then it's a welcome one. This is an incredibly beautiful vehicle. Next up, the Mitsubishi Evo XIII. This is definitely a long-awaited one and a firm fan favourite. I think a lot of people were looking forward to this. In terms of the price point, it starts off at 80,000 credits from Brand Central. However, of course, just like the Evo 9 and pretty much all of the older generations of Evos, this can also be picked up from the used car dealership. Of course, it will have some mileage on it and the price will be a slight bit lower, 65,800 credits, but honestly, you may as well just get yourself a brand new model. Of course, one of the key factors when it comes to any of the Evo generations is just how customizable is it, and I'm happy to report that the Evo 8 may just be the most customizable and best one yet. Of course, it can change depending whether you've got the wide body on or the non-wide body version. You can do the likes of track builds, street builds, drag builds, rally builds, anything, you name it, you can pretty much do it with the Evo 8, a massively versatile and customizable vehicle that will change up depending on what kind of customizable upgrades you're actually running. Now, one thing I've made no secret about when it comes to this channel, in the whole Evo versus Impreza battle, I've pretty much always been an Impreza guy. I grew up watching them in rallying, racing and all that kind of stuff, so I always kind of gravitated towards them, especially, kind of growing up. However, since playing Gran Turismo 7, I feel like my eyes have been opened to just how impressive the Evo generations can be, and the Evo 8 may just be one of my favourites yet. Ever since the Evo 3 arrived in 2023 to Gran Turismo 7, all of the Evo generations have kind of become some of my go-to tuner cards. They stand out amongst almost anything else at a 700pp spec, and it's the exact same with the Evo 8, just like it was with the Evo 9, Evo 3 and all that kind of generation stuff, that they are absolutely fantastic. Of course, in its standard form, it's not necessarily going to blow you away. Of course, it handles well, it accelerates well, and it's relatively decent overall, but where this car comes into its own is upgraded and track ready. This is where I absolutely adore any single generation of the Evo, and the Evo 8 is absolutely no different. Honestly, I think I may even prefer it to the latter generation, the Evo 9, which of course came around earlier on this year. I think the Evo 8 might just be one of my firm favourite JDM vehicles in the entirety of Gran Turismo 7, but I guess only time will tell. Now, on a bit of a side note, of course we're getting a nice build up of different Imprezas and different Evos in GT7, so I do actually have a couple of video ideas. I want to put every single generation of Evo head to head in game, and I also want to try and pit them against their Impreza counterparts as well, so I guess maybe hold on till the start of 2025 for that one. And now for the final vehicle of the update, of course, I'm going to talk about the Toyota HIACE DX, or the van, as most people are probably going to call it. As you can see, it does retail for 25,000 credits. It's certainly nothing special. However, I would go on to say that this is what Gran Turismo has always been about. It's all about just putting in these weird and wacky vehicles that you wouldn't see anywhere else, and all of a sudden throwing them around many tracks across the world. And in terms of the likes of the upgrades, this is where the van is much more impressive than I originally expected. It has the likes of a wide body option, and it also does feature an engine swap on day one, which is the LS7 BRZ for 300,000 credits. Then in terms of the other customization options, you have plenty of wheel options, you have the likes of bumper options, side skirt options, the ability to remove some of the mirrors, and yes, you can even fully strip this thing out. Whilst in any other racing game, this would probably be sitting in an open world racer as an NPC in a commuter car that you cannot touch, or you'll just kind of drive past as traffic. I genuinely do love the care and attention that Polyphony have put into making this an insanely customizable, pretty unique vehicle to Gran Turismo 7. So in terms of the doubters when it comes to this game, and especially this vehicle for this update, honestly, whilst I would absolutely love some of the most up-to-date GT spec car, there's a whole licensing issue with that. There's exclusive licenses, and it's an absolute minefield of different things to actually get a car in a game. Let's be honest, when it comes to charm, where else can you throw around a fully stripped out van with a drift engine blocking it? Well, not really many other places. Honestly, when I look back at the history of Gran Turismo, vehicles like the HIACE has always been kind of what Gran Turismo has been about. Putting in these weird and wacky obscure vehicles you just wouldn't find anywhere else, and just giving them that bit of charm. In the likes of Gran Turismo 4, 5, 6, we've had a wide range of obscure Japanese vehicles, so in my opinion, the likes of the HIACE coming to GT7 really isn't that necessarily surprising, and just keeps Gran Turismo feeling quite unique from anything else out there. So I guess in conclusion with the Toyota HIACE, I genuinely don't hate it. I think it's a fun, quirky vehicle. I appreciate the amount of customization that can be done to it, and of course when it comes to that drift engine swap, you might want a fine hand in terms of fine tuning this thing. It's absolutely a rocket ship missile, putting out around about 1200 brake horsepower. It's ridiculous, and I can just see absolute carnage unfolding with this one. So there we go, that is my initial thoughts on all three of the new vehicles with update 1.52. It's very much a JDM takeover, and whilst at first I really wasn't that excited for these three vehicles and I thought it was a rather safe overall update, I genuinely have been enjoying all three of these vehicles for many different reasons. It's great to see the most up-to-date GTR. The Evo 8 continues the trend that Evos are incredible track-ready machines, and of course the van is just absolutely ridiculous and just adds to that typical GT charm. Big thank you to all of my channel members. If you do want to join, it does massively help me out between uploads, and a big thank you to you guys watching at home. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend. Take care, guys. Peace.